While I was casting the seasonal tournament yesterday, Riot did a teaser reveal that included some Mecha-Yordles, and it was widely thought that that meant Rumble was going to be the next champion. Today we found out that was in fact the case. Rumble was revealed in all of his glory. I did not get to make a reveal video yesterday because I was casting the event, so today we're going to cover all of the cards revealed today and yesterday. We're also going to try to speed through it at a bit of a faster pace, not only because there's a lot of cards to cover, but quite frankly, there's a pretty bad winter storm where I'm at, and I'm afraid I might lose power or something before I get to finish recording this. So we are going to fly through the cards, and then I'll come back and talk about potential deck archetypes, play patterns, things like that, and also talk about the controversial reveal that fired everybody up today. So we're going to start with the cards. First is, of course, Rumble. This is a 5/4 for 4 mana. It is in Bandle City and Noxus, and it is a Mecha-Yordle. So this is a new tag that was revealed. They let us know that Vigor's level 2 is now officially a Mecha-Yordle as well. And on play for Rumble, you discard up to 3 cards to grant allied Rumbles everywhere, impact for the first card discarded, quick attack for the second, spell shield for the third. Now what's interesting here is if you discard all 3 the first time, you don't have to do it the second time you play Rumble because the first one grants all copies everywhere. So this is kind of a one-time thing, but also he's in Noxus, which means there's plenty of ways to not just offset, but turn this discard into a bonus. For example, if he's discarding Scion, chances are he's also getting Overwhelm, right? Rumble is just going to be a stat stick full of keywords, a very powerful turn 4 play. And I am very excited. Now, to level Rumble up, he has to have dealt 12 or more damage. The most common way that's going to happen is him attacking twice because he has 5 attack. And if you've done the discarding, he will have impact. That doesn't, however, mean that you can't do it other ways. For example, any cards that allow him to strike, that's going to help you out. If he blocks, that's going to help you out, so on and so forth. If Rumble levels up, we have the standard +1/+1 applied. It's also worth noting that he just gets the keywords. He'll have quick attack, spell shield, and impact. Even if you never do the discarding at level 1, like you could just play a 5/4 for 4, but if he deals 12 or more damage, he's going to level up and get all those keywords anyway. He also says when you deal damage to the enemy Nexus, create a random Mecha-Yordle in hand, or if you have one, grant all Mecha-Yordles in hand +1/+1 and reduce their cost by 1. That is an absurd ability for this little guy. There's a number of ways to make Mecha-Yordles outside of this Rumble effect, and we're going to talk about those as well, but this is huge, and it's when you deal damage to the enemy Nexus. So if Rumble attacks and is blocked, but the impact goes off, that's still going to count as a trigger. And if you have ways to give him impact more than once, then each impact when it triggers will give you another trigger of this ability. So I think Rumble is very, very strong. We'll find a home in at least one deck, if not multiple decks. And again, I'm going to talk about potential pairings at the end because there's still more to cover, even with just Rumble. So his champion spell is Flame Spitter. This is a 2-cost burst spell in Bandle City. And it says grant an ally +2/+0 and impact. That is grant, that is permanent. So this is a 2-cost burst spell that potentially threatens 3 extra damage on a Nexus, or lets you trade up and get 1 damage on a Nexus, or on a Rumble, even if it's a Rumble that's not leveled up, right? It gets that +2/+0 and impact. So that is huge. And if it's a Rumble with keywords, then that is a lot of additional potential damage. If it's a Rumble with keywords and you discarded a Scion, oh boy. So really interesting champion spell. I don't know if it's going to be good enough to see play in the main deck, but I am happy, I think, to play this. If I have more than one Rumble, I think I'm happy to buff my existing Rumble on the board with the champion spell, and that's the sort of thing you love to see. Now, as I said, there's a lot to cover, so we're going to come back to Rumble in just a minute. We're now going to talk about Arena Mecha Caster. This is a 6-cost 4/5 Yordle. It is a Noxus and Bandle City card, and on attack, give other attacking allies +2/+0 this round. So essentially, this is just a big-bodied cousin to Arena Battlecaster. However, I think this is actually significantly worse than Arena Battlecaster because the stat line here is nowhere near the same level of efficacy. So Battlecaster is normally just a 2-2 for 2, but that 2-2 for 2 is a far more relevant stat line on turn 2 or at that point in the game. Whereas when you're getting to the point where you're playing 6 drops, yes, this is, you know, buffing your potentially wide board, but it's a 4-5. And so if people are playing like 6-6 Cythrias or big dragons or whatever, this thing is just going to die. And the +2 versus a +1 is not really, in my opinion, that much of a groundbreaking difference to warrant paying for the expensive one. And on top of that, like, your board's probably not super wide on round 6 anyway, enough to take advantage of this unless you're on a more like mid-rangey game plan. But if that's the case, then you don't want this because you're mid-range. So I am just honestly not a huge fan of this card. Sorry, but that is my current assessment of it. It feels like it's coming down too late to do what it wants to do. Like, the reason that Battlecaster is so good is because you can have those explosive starts with like flame chompers and all sorts of things so that you're, you know, swinging for ridiculous amounts of damage on turn 2 or on turn 3. But we're going to move on. Next up, we have Arena Promoter. This is a 4-cost 4/3 Yordle in Bandle City. It has the tough keyword. On play, you discard 1 to manifest a Mecha-Yordle, and we will cover all of the Mecha-Yordles at the end here. But you discard 1 to manifest a Mecha-Yordle and reduce its cost by 1. Now, the important thing you need to know before we go through each of the Mecha-Yordles is that they are above par for cost. So the idea here is that you get an understated unit and you have to discard a card to create something that is better than normal value for the cost. So very similar to like Celestials, but not quite as busted, though there's a couple of them in my opinion that are actually very, very strong in the Mecha-Yordles. But that's the same idea, right? Same kind of design choice. So this card I think is actually pretty decent. The problem is Arena Promoter costs 4, and there's already insane 4 drops that exist in Bandle City, let alone other regions, and I don't think that this is good enough to push those out. Like, at the end of the day, doesn't matter how good the mechs are you going to run Promoter or Poppy, you know? Are you going to run Promoter or Lecturing Yordle? Like, those are the problems. So, that's my train of thought here. Next up, we have Bilge Rascal. This is a 3-cost 3/2 in only Bandle City, and it has the Yordle keyword, the Yordle tag. Now, it is worth noting it is called Bilge Rat, but it is not part of Bilge Water. It is, again, only Bandle City. And this one says, on play, you discard 1 to manifest a Mecha-Yordle, and you grant it Spell Shield. So where Promoter makes it cheaper, Rascal gives it Spell Shield. A 3-cost 3/2 isn't terrible. It does not have any keywords, but if you are playing a slower version of mechs and you just need a early blocker while developing them and then protecting whichever one you get with that spell shield, this could find a home in a slower paced Mecha-Yordle kind of control style deck. I think that this one is on the fence of being very playable. Next up, we have Fix 'em Uppers. This is a 2-cost 1/2 from Bandle City. Does not have any other tags or keywords. It simply says the first time you discard a card or damage the enemy nexus, grant me +2/+1. So if you meet some requirements, you get a 2-cost 3/3, which is okay, but not great. And there are so many other far better 2-drops that already exist. I don't think this one ends up making the cut. Next up, we have Electro Harpoon. This is a 2-cost slow spell in Bandle City. To play, discard 1, but you get to deal 2 to a unit and 2 to the enemy nexus. So this card I like a lot. Yes, it's slow speed, but outside of that, this is very good. This is like a get excited in my mind, but for Bandle City. It is flexible and it helps you both deal with a unit and threaten damage. Like there's a lot this card does, and the drawbacks I do not think are that significant. Like, slow speed is the biggest drawback, but the discard 1 will be so easy to offset for a number of reasons, both like just pairing it with regions that offset it naturally, but also even just in Bandle City. Like, Bandle City just makes cards by accident, so this will be very, very easy to meet the requirement for. Now we have to briefly talk about the card that set my Twitter feed on fire today. And for good reason, and I'll revisit it. But Yordle Explorer is a 2-cost 2/2 Yordle in Bandle City that says when you summon another Yordle, grant it +1/+1. So if you are looking at this and it sounds familiar, there's a reason. This is just Battlesmith. However, Battlesmith does this for elites and is not an elite itself. Yordle Explorer is a Yordle and does it for all Yordles. And the reason that people are so upset is that Yordles are already just a better tribe than elites are. So to get a better Battlesmith, a power crept Battlesmith in a tribe that is already considered stronger is going to feel a bit rough. Actually, I said I was going to come back to this. I'll just talk about it now real quick. We'll get it out of the way. I understand why people are upset. There was a lot of folks that are very, very vocal about this, and I get it, because this card is powerful and it feels like a slap in the face because it is a support card for an already existing powerful archetype. I get it. However, this card is not the problem. Like, I get that this might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, but this card itself is not the problem. The only reason that this card is a problem is because of the other already powerful cards. And the proof is in Battlesmith, right? Battlesmith is garbage because the elites are garbage. This is only good because the other Yordles are good. If we didn't have to worry about Conchologist, if we didn't have to worry about Poppy, if we didn't have to worry about Lecturing Yordle, so on and so forth, just being staples in the meta, people would look at this card and they would kind of shrug their shoulders, because all this does is make already good cards better. It already makes annoying cards more annoying, right? It makes Poppy that much harder to kill when she comes down. It makes Lecturing Yordle this absolute house of stats, which is gonna be a real crime. Like, I'm actually, I think, more scared of Lecturing Yordle than I am Poppy, because that thing is already annoying enough to kill, and then if it's gonna be that much bigger, and heaven help us if it's like a turn 2 Yordle Explorer into a turn 3/3 Yordle Explorer into just a massive Lecturing Yordle that will generate value forever. Yeah, so I get why people are upset, but just keep in mind that while you have every right to look at this and be like, okay, you know, why did they power creep Battlesmith? You know, why now? Blah, blah, blah. You have to remember that at the end of the day, this card actually isn't the problem. This card might end up feeling like a problem, but this card is not the problem. This card is only causing the reaction that it is causing because the other cards are already problems. This is an inflammation. This is an exacerbation of existing symptoms. This card is not the problem. So just kind of keep that in mind as you see people complaining. And again, Battlesmith is right there in her faces. Like, nobody complains about Battlesmith because elites are garbage. And so the only reason that Yordle Explorer is going to get complaints is because Yordles are the exact opposite of garbage. So yeah, Yordle Explorer kind of upset some folks. We're going to move on though. We're going to talk about the cards that were revealed yesterday, starting with Squeaker. This one's very straightforward. It is a 2-cost 1/1 with Augment in Bandle City, and it said on play, discard 1 to manifest a Mecha-Yordle. That's it. Then we have Scrap Heap. This was a 1-cost burst spell. To play, discard 1, manifest a Mecha-Yordle. And so those are the cards that manifest the Mecha-Yordles. And so naturally, we're at that point where we're saying, okay, well, what are the Mecha-Yordles? And I'm here to tell you. So there are 11 of them in total, 2 that are only Bandle City, and then the other ones are Bandle City and a region. So all of the regions are covered. And as such, the Mecha-Yordle archetype is likely going to be a choice or a potential choice to support Bandle Tree decks, because it's just more ways to search for the regions that you're missing. But even if that's not your end goal, as you'll see, some of these are really powerful. And so depending on the playability and viability of the cards that manifest the mechs, we could end up seeing some of these mechs pretty often. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're talking about them. First up, we have Bouncer and Bolt. This is a 2-cost 3/2, and it has Challenger and Impact. This one is just one of the Bandle City ones. So you spend 2, and traditionally you'll get a 3/2 with a single keyword, but Mecha-Yordles, as I said, they're all kind of above par. Above par. They're driving cars, but they're above par as far as their stats and their keywords and their power level goes. So you get 2 keywords here. Now, these are relevant keywords. You can likely use this to trade with a unit and get some chip damage in. But this one is, I think, one of the more like lower performing ones. And I think you'll see that there are a couple of standouts as we go. So next up we have Fury Horn Crasher. This is the Freljord mech. It is a 2 cost 3/2 with impact, but this says on attack you grant the top 3 allies in your deck +1/+1. So this is like a recurring, or at least a potentially recurring, Hawk trigger. And this is a big deal because if you're playing these cards that manifest Mecha-Yordles, manifesting this one early and getting it attacking could be a way to offset the fact that the manifest cards themselves usually have low stats, and then this can help make up for it while generating additional value, getting in that chip damage potentially, even if you just attack once, right? You spend 2 mana, you trade with likely at least another 2-drop, but you also buff stuff at the top of your deck. You get that impact trigger. So this is an okay early game choice when you're manifesting if it comes up. The Targon mech is called Geode Mecha Forcer. This is a 2 cost 1/4 with impact, but it says it has support. Give my supported ally spell shield and +2/+2 this round. So if you've got another unit to support, this is a very low cost way to threaten a lot of damage. Even if it's just a 1/1, for example, that 1/1 becomes a 3/3, and then this is a 1/4, but it has impact, so you're really threatening like 5 damage for that attack, as well as protecting whatever it is that you are buffing because of the spell shield. This having 4 health means if you're playing it early enough, it's likely to survive at least one attack. It's, you know, pretty sturdy, pretty resilient. So I think this one is also a very solid choice. I think the spell shield is pretty relevant as well, because again, whatever it is that is you're supporting here that is your choice of target, you could potentially be protecting it from other effects. But that is the Targon one. Next up we have Salty Spinner. I think this one might be my least favorite choice. This is the Bilgewater mech. It is a 3 cost 0/4 with impact, but it says when I'm summoned or round start, grant me +0/+2 for each card you discarded last round, then shuffle my stats. So this card is really about the discard archetype, if we're being honest, and the Rumble archetype. This is something you would maybe select, like if you're manifesting and it's the round after you played Rumble, then when this comes down, it will get that trigger for each card you discarded. So if you played Rumble and you discarded 3 cards, but you somehow have enough to then also manifest a mech, which means at least 2 more cards on top of that. Well, let's just say hypothetically that that's what happened, right? You play your Rumble, you can also manifest another mech, you play this, then it's going to come down as a 0/10 with impact, but then it's going to shuffle the stats. The idea here is that you're going to continue to buff this the more you discard cards, but again, if I'm being honest, it is my least favorite of the bunch because you have to really invest in it to make it work, and if you are putting that much investment into this, you'd probably be better off just running a better deck. So this one, outside of like Bandletree, so like if you need Bilgewater and you're manifesting for Bandletree, great, but otherwise outside of that, I don't think this one's going to get chosen very often. The next one, however, I think will be chosen fairly often. This is Smash and Dash. It is a 3 cost 4/4. This is the other mech that is only Bandle City. And this says when I'm summoned, grant me impact twice. So you spend 3 mana, you get a 4/4 body and impact twice. So it swings for 6 for 3 mana. And even if it's blocked, you're probably getting 2 damage in. That is a very aggressive stat line. I expect this to be a pretty popular choice when you are trying to close out games, because like I said, it just does all the things you want it to do when you're being aggressive. Now the next card is very interesting to me. This is the Piltover and Zahn mech. It's Professor Von mech. This is a 4 cost 3/2 with impact. If you haven't figured it out by now, all the mechs have impact, but this one says when I'm summoned, create a random 1, 2, and 3 cost follower in hand. So you play this and you get a bunch of other random followers, but this is also on summon. So if you can recall this and replay it, or if you can kill it and revive it, you know, all the usual flicker tricks, well, you can really just generate tons of value if your hand was empty from all of these discard effects that you had to do to run the mechs. So this could give you a great way to refill your hand, or just give you a bunch more fodder that you can then use to discard to manifest even more mechs. That's also viable as well. But I like that this card can, in many ways, become its own engine because the followers it's creating is random. And so you can play this and you could get like the 2/2 elusive that is a 2 cost. And then when you play it, you return this to your hand and then you get to replay it. And so that's kind of neat. But also specifically the reason this card stands out to me more than all of the flicker effects and refill your hand stuff, because it is random followers, this is a great choice early on for Bandletree. And there are times where, depending on what your choices are when you're manifesting, you might choose this even if you've already played a Piltover and Zaun card for your Bandletree, because you are going to get 3 random followers in hand that all might meet different requirements, and you know they're cheap. Like, that's the real key here, right? Once you've played this, you're getting 3 followers that are random, but they cost 1, 2, and 3. So you can likely be able to afford at least 2 of them on the following turn. And that's assuming you played this on curve. So I think this card is going to be great for Bandletree, and it will be a popular choice if that's the archetype you're playing these Mecha-Yordles in. Now, the next card is the Ionia mech, and this one is okay. Like, it's not bad, but it's just not flashy. This is a 4 cost 2/5 with elusive and impact. So it's basically, you know, an elusive unit with 5 health that swings for 3, and that's it. Not a lot going on there. And then the last 4 Mecha-Yordles, we have the Shurima one. This one is kind of nutty. This is a 5 cost 5/6 with impact, but on attack, summon 2 attacking sand soldiers. So that means, if you do your math there, if your opponent has no blocks, right? If they have 0 interaction, this is a 5 cost unit that swings for 10. This gives me like OG Hecarim vibes. It is not as strong as Hecarim was, obviously, and there are plenty of ways that you can slow down that damage, right? The sand soldiers are pretty easy to chump block. This has impact, so that damage is going through, but you know, you can throw 1/1 in front of this 5/6 body, but still, that is a very good like mana investment to damage threatened ratio. And so I think that this one will be a very popular choice as well. However, the next one, not in that same level of popularity in my mind, unless you really need a Demacia unit. This is the Demacian mech, Trumpet Tecker. I hope I never have to pronounce that live during a broadcast, because that one's rough. This is a 5 cost 4/5 with impact. When I'm summoned, grant other allies +1/+1. So this is a glorified Bannerman. Yes, it always triggers, but honestly, like, the increased cost for the increased stats and keywords, in my opinion, are not enough to warrant selecting this most of the time. This one might be one of my least favorites as well. Next up, we have Earthshaker. This one is one of my favorites for closing out games, because this thing is bananas. It gets out of hand so fast, and if you have any sort of rally effects, then this card is really absurd. This is a 6 cost 3/8 with impact, but it reads, on attack, double my power and impact. So impact stacks, as we know. So you play this, and then if you attack with it, it goes from a 3/8 with impact to a 6/8 with impact 2. So it's threatening 8 when you attack with it. And then if you rally, right, and you attack a second time that turn, it goes from a 6/8 to a 12/8 with impact 4. And that is just with a single rally effect. That is absurd. It does have 3 attacks, so it will be susceptible to do cards like Culling Strike or the new Recall effect that costs 2 mana, for example. So there will be some windows of opportunity to respond to this, but this is the kind of card that I think can close out a game very, very quickly. The Noxus mech is brutal. And then the last of the Mecha-Yordles is the Shadow Isles mech. This is Lil Dipper. It is a 6 cost 5/3 with impact. To play me, discard a unit. Last breath, summon an exact copy of the discarded unit. There's some neat things you can do with this. It's got a very matron-like effect. The problem is that to get the most value out of the effect, you almost have to build around it, right? If you play matron, you're probably playing like Cytherea matron, right? Where you're trying to cheat in something that's super expensive but has a crazy powerful effect. But if you're doing that with the mechs, you're then also banking on, like, you play all these manifest cards to get Lil Dipper, also draw the card that you want to have in your hand, then play Lil Dipper, then find a way to kill your Lil Dipper, all to get that card out. and 9 times out of 10, Matron's just going to be easier. And so I don't think this one is going to be nearly as impactful as the others. Like, it's a powerful effect, but it requires too much deck building investment to make this worth your time. And so that's it for the actual Mecha-Yordles that you can make through the manifest. And so we're going to go back to Rumble so that I can talk about the kinds of decks that I expect Rumble to appear in, or the kinds of decks that I think at least warrant testing, because I think he's very flexible. He is a very strong card on curve if you can discard the cards. A 5 for impact, quick attack, spell shield is kind of busted for 4 mana. Like, that is just good. And then if you can also give yourself additional benefits with those discards, whether that's pairing him with Piltover and Zon so that you can get things like Flame Chompers. If you're running him with Noxus, obviously Scion gives him Overwhelm if you discard that. There's the other Noxus cards that grant you bonuses if you discard him as well. I think in his reveal video, he gets the +2/+0 effect from discarding the 5/5. There's just a number of ways that you can make Rumble even more busted. So I expect him to be played in decks with maybe Draven, because the axes become easy cards to discard to offset his comes into play requirement. I expect him to be paired with Scion because the Overwhelm is really powerful. Whether it's just Draven or just Scion or some sort of mix, we'll have to wait and see. I could see him being played with somebody like Riven, for example. So Riven and the Riven style Noxus cards could create those sword fragments, and then you could just choose to pitch those instead, right? So there's a number of ways you can just create cards and then use them as fodder for these discard effects for the manifest. Obviously, Bandle City as well has a bunch of those same kinds of cards, right? Even just the 1-drop 2/1 where you're making either the spear or the shield. That's a great fodder card. If you're playing with Targon, you can make gems, so on and so forth. There's a lot of ways you can offset this. I also think it would be interesting to consider going with like a Rumble Jinx deck where Rumble is the precursor to Jinx, because Rumble is a very easy, succinct way to just empty the majority of your hand to set up you playing Jinx the following round and leveling her up right away. And then also, because you only have to pay this cost once with Rumble, if you do pitch the 3 cards and then you level up your Jinx and you draw another Rumble, it's not like, oh, well, now I don't have the cards to discard, because the keywords are granted to all copies everywhere. So that is pretty relevant. And then the nice thing is that just like Jinx, when she's leveled up, Rumble helps in his leveled up form to create additional cards for you. So yes, you empty your hand, but then you turn around and you refill your hand, and you're likely doing it with some pretty powerful mechs along the way. So I think Jinx is potentially a pairing partner. I think obviously Draven and Scion are as well. I think Tristana is potentially a pairing partner, because if you play Rumble with these manifest cards, you can get a bunch of multi-region cards that are aggressive and powerful. And that helps with the Tristana game plan and with that impact game plan. So I think that's another potential pairing, and probably more, right? I've been thinking about Rumble a lot since he was revealed this afternoon, and I think that he's just really good. I think Rumble is cracked. So excited to actually play around with him, excited to do some theory crafting. And you know, if Ahri wasn't coming, I'd say he might be my favorite champion of the set, but Ahri's coming. And so like by default, I have to start with her. So it is what it is, but that's it for this video. I know this one was kind of long, even though I said I was going to go through it quickly. There was a lot to cover. I'm glad we made it. Let me know what you think, obviously, about Rumble, because I think he's really, really strong. Let me know what you think about, you know, our new Battlesmith for Yordles. I'm sure that I'll get some lovely comments about that, because my Twitter feed has been pretty heated, but let me know anyway. I love reading the comments. And if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching, and until next time, may you walk on warm sands.